It's round 14 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. We're at Spa-Francorchamps on a very hot Saturday afternoon. It's a grid that was determined in a wet but drying qualifying session. It has given us one of the most random Formula 3 grids imaginable as you watch Jean-Briant Meisner come to the front of the grid to start fourth this time around. We had one race earlier on in the day which gave plenty of drama, plenty of excitement all the way through. And around the Spa circuit, there is scope for overtaking. There is scope to benefit from a slipstream tow effect from the car ahead. And although race one was led virtually throughout by Max Verstappen, there was drama right the way through. He lost time at the end. That was all to do with oversteer rather than a mechanical problem as such, anything power related. But in this race, he will start second on the grid. And with Esteban Ocon, the championship leader, having retired, his first non-finish of the season in race one, the championship is starting to become even more interesting. He had an 82-point advantage. It's now down to 70 for second in the title race. Tom Blomqvist 7 points up on Lucas Auer. And you've just seen the man heading for his first Formula 3 pole position, Gustavo Menezes, will start this race at the front of the grid. Now, qualifying session yesterday was one that began on a damp circuit and was very quickly red flagged because Mitch Gilbert crashed. By the time it was restarted, it was very wet indeed. One or two drivers went out, Menezes being one of them on slicks early on, but he changed to wets for the end of the session, and his wets were in better condition, so he got one final lap's life out of them, good enough to go to the top of the times. And it was a session only 20 minutes long in which you needed 2 good times. The best is for this grid. The second best time will be for tomorrow's race, the third of the weekend. You can see the way they're going to line up, and if you're looking for one or two of the regular front runners, you'll find them a long way down the order, such as Tom Blomqvist, who will start this race from 22nd, Jake Dennis 21st, the Carlin drivers having really used their wets too early. And Antonio Fuoco never did a time because he went off as well early in the session, and they spent the restart time trying to repair the car. So it's almost like a reverse grid race, this. You've got many of the regular front runners near the back. You've got some of the drivers that you don't normally find up near the pointy end, like Menezes, like Briant Meisner, like Alex Torriel, who starts 6th. All at the front. This could be the race of the season, or it could be the longest safety car period we've had of the season. We'll find out. Gustavo Menezes, in his first year of European Formula 3 racing, certainly has acquitted himself well at Spa. Earlier on in the day, he took his best finish yet, which was 6th in race 1. And here he is on pole position now. With all due deference to him, whether he will be able to defend for 16 laps against the opposition, not convinced. But if he can get away, could be a different story. But this man, we know, Max Verstappen for second on the grid, is a very brave driver indeed. And we also saw how well he raced over the first few corners in race 1 to get the lead heading up towards Les Combes. So Verstappen, the man born in Belgium, lives in Belgium, and now a race winner in Belgium in his first ever year of car racing, is still a very good bet, I think, for another victory. The Van Amersfoort team that runs that car, conscious that this could be his day of days. But Esteban Ocon, that you've just seen lining up third on the grid, is also very conscious that he needs some more points out of this. The worst he'd had all year was 9th up until race 1. Now he has a retirement to his name, and that was the first non-finish in 13 races, a pretty remarkable record. Ocon still has this big advantage in the championship, but this is round 14 out of 33, so there is, as they say, a long way still to go. And Esteban Ocon, along with Max Verstappen, one of the drivers you would anticipate to be at the front, Jean-Briant Meisner, who will line up 4th on the grid, driving for the Fortec team, is one that, with all due deference, is a bit of a surprise as well. And again, that was really down to when they were able to get the best out of a set of tyres on the track. The Carlin people had virtually done their best by 3/4 of the way through. Other teams had still a lap or two in the tyres, and Jean-Briant Meisner getting himself to 4th. And behind him is Felix Serralles, who will start 5th, and Alex Torriel for 6th.
You should be quite racy here, mate, okay? All right.
Jean-Briant Meisner being given some last words of advice and encouragement before the cars are released onto the green flag lap. This is the race, I think, that most people in the Formula 3 paddock have been looking forward to over the weekend, just because it is such a bizarre grid, and with lots of quick drivers having to work their way through traffic. And we've seen in race 1 already that it can be done. Let battle commence. 35 minutes or 16 laps, depending on which comes first. 5th on the grid, Felix Serralles in the Kuros engineered Westec car. Team Westec new to this championship this year, but Felix Serralles no stranger to Formula 3 or slicks and wings single-seaters, and was going strongly in the earlier race. In the end, he was perhaps a little bit unlucky because he got bumped down to 11th place. In other words, the first of those outside the points, which was pretty disappointing and poor reward for all his hard work. But Serralves starting 5th will definitely be one to watch in this race, I would have thought. And then, for 6th on the grid, is Alex Toril, the Spanish driver, whose best of the year in terms of a race finish has been 12th. He didn't finish race 1, so what he can do from here remains to be seen. It's the most elevated he's been on the grid all season. There is no longer, as they used to be in the Euro Series, for example, a reversal of the top positions after one race ready for the next race grid. It's all done on qualifying these days, and so it shows you what a strange session it was yesterday, that you have some of these drivers up near the front, which isn't to do their efforts down, it's just that it's so competitive this year, the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, that you've got to be very good indeed to get up at the front of the field. Felipe Guimarães, you've had a look at, he starts 7th, the Brazilian driver, who was another driver to battle hard in race 1. He was up and down the order, and he got 8th place in the end, and then he will line up with Lucas Auer alongside. Auer was able to catch when Verstappen had his oversteer problems in race 1. Came oh so close to making a move, just a brush between them, and it seemed to do some damage to Auer's car, and he fell away for the remainder of that last lap. But here he will start 8th on the grid, and I think could still be on the podium from there. We'll find out as the countdown continues here with 4 more minutes or so before the green flag lap gets underway. Lucas Auer, the Austrian, driving for the Mucker Motorsport team in one of the Mercedes engine cars. You've still got this great battle in the championship between not only the teams but the engine manufacturers as well. Everybody runs a Dallara chassis, so by market forces rather than regulation, it's become a one-make series, but there is still the scope for the team, the driver and the engine to shine. So the grid girls, the Deutsche Post grid girls, make their way into the pit lane, and very shortly the field will be released ready for this race 2. And although there has been 1 or 2 black clouds hovering overhead of late, they've not come to anything, and now it has become a very warm afternoon at Spa. It could change in 30 seconds flat. You know what the Spa weather is like, but for now all is good as Felix Rosenqvist, who is 6th in the championship, a winner at Pau for the 73rd Pau Grand Prix, lines up for this race 9th on the grid, and then 10th is going to be Michele Beretta, who is somebody else who you don't normally anticipate to be up near the front. So you see what a jumbled order it is as we get ready for this 16-lap race. Race 1 of the weekend had a safety car period. That made it 15 laps and it went to time. The reason for the safety car, an accident between Antonio Giovinazzi and championship and indeed circuit rookie, which was Santino Ferrucci, and sad to say the damage to Ferrucci's car is enough to keep him out of this race. They are hoping that they can repair the car for race 3, but some people in the paddock are not convinced that that's likely either. There's Michele Beretta, who will start 10th on the grid for the Euro International team, Antonio Ferrari's team, and the 1-by-1 staggered grid stretches back to the bus stop. Spa, again, of course, is one of these circuits where the start and finish line are not quite in the same place. The finish line directly opposite the timekeepers coming out of the bus stop. The start line halfway up the Formula 1 pit straight, which they're using here. Tatiana Calderon, 11th on the grid. And the Colombian girl will be eager to try to make progress from there and get into the points, because her best of the season has been a trio of 15th places, but there is potential, perhaps, for a points finish out of this. And the driver that will start 12th on the grid is somebody else that's had a pretty decent day thus far, Jules Szymkowiak, who was involved in the leading battle in race 1. He finished 9th. His best of the year is a 6th. And Szymkowiak, who is somebody else new to, if you like, public single-seater racing, having raced in the BMW Talent Cup last year, which is largely behind closed doors, a kind of school competition, if you like. He has acquitted himself well for Van Amersfoort Racing. So it's an all Van Amersfoort front row. His teammates, Gustavo Menezes and Max Verstappen, are there. And now the engines are fired up. We have had the 1-minute board. The grid is being cleared, and a race eagerly anticipated up and down the pit lane is about to get underway. Race 1 was an absolute perler. Although Verstappen was always the man to beat, so much happened throughout the field that we're expecting another great race here, especially with it being a very strange looking grid, as I say. But you never know what's going to happen. If Verstappen gets away, it could be a very different story, and expect plenty of drama as people try and work their way through the pack. So the grid, with the exception of Ferrucci, who has been withdrawn from this race, is complete. They'll be released very shortly. 16 laps around the majestic Spa-Francorchamps circuit, with one more race tomorrow morning, and it's a busy period for the teams because they have to be at the Norris Ring for Thursday, where next weekend there are the next 3 races in the championship where they're back supporting the DTM. So the cars release, the green lights come on the gantry overlooking the pit straight, the green flags fly around the circuit, and round 14 of the championship is about to get underway as the cars now then work their way into the hairpin at La Source. It was here in race 1 that Tom Blomqvist got squeezed out by, in fact, Gustavo Menezes. Well, for this race, Blomqvist starts 22nd. He is one of those, and Antonio Fuoco, who is 23rd behind him, one of those drivers who has got to make some progress. Jake Dennis will start 21st. So to call it a handicap race is a little unfair, but there is going to be this element of people from the back catching as best they can through to the front. There's an awful lot to look at. This is how they start. Compare it with how they finish. Menezes, Verstappen, Ocon, Brandt, Meisner, Saralis, Toril, Guimaraes, Auer, Rosenqvist and Beretta, the top 10. One that nobody would have predicted before qualifying got underway. Calderon, Shimkoviak, Latifi, Hurst, King only 15th, Goddard, Nissani, Giovinazzi, Galal and Zeller to round out the top 20. And then behind them it will be Jake Dennis, Tom Blomqvist, Antonio Fuoco. Fuoco never got out to do a time. Dennis van der Laar's car never went out because it was damaged in free practice, and Mitch Gilbert crashed on his first flying lap of the session and did enough damage to be a non-starter for the remainder of qualifying, and he goes to the very back because he's had an engine change. He was going to be penultimate, he's now flat last. The engine change puts you to the back of the grid for 3 races. The first was this morning, this is the second, and tomorrow's is the third. And as he was going to be at the back anyway for 2 of those 3, it hasn't really given him too big a handicap for the weekend. This is the fast left of Pouhon, where the cars sweep downhill. In the good old days, there'd be a big grass verge and a gravel track there to catch out the unwary. These days, there's all the extra Formula 1 run-off tarmac. And despite the fact that 1 or 2 drivers were being warned in race 1 about track limits, it wasn't the big drama that it could have been. Certainly at the Hungaroring, the races were really rather spoilt by track limit dramas. But race 1 here was a lot better, a lot tidier, a lot cleaner. The message, I think, has got home. So the cars coming through L'École, past the educational buildings, up towards the Courbe Paul Frère. Spa, a busy circuit. This weekend, the FIA Formula 3 European Championship joins the FIA World Touring Car Championship here. In a month's time, the Spa 24 Hours will be here, which is always a monster weekend of racing. But as the drivers weave around to put warmth into the tyres, Esteban Ocon, starting 3rd on the grid, will be very keen to get himself back onto the top step of the podium. He leads the championship, he leads, as you've just seen, the rookie championship as well. And that non-finish was a real shock to the system because it was the first time he'd not finished a race all season, and the worst he'd done was 9th. So it was a very surprising result for him. 11 out of 12 times he had been on the podium, and now that one retirement, which was not entirely his fault. He got squeezed in the middle of a pack of cars all battling their way up towards L'École on that first lap. So the field comes out of the bus stop. They now form up on the grid with Gustavo Menezes, the man who now will feel the pressure. And the loquacious American has Max Verstappen with him at the front of the grid. And Verstappen, and this really is a Verstappen-type circuit where you've got to be fast and brave and committed, and he's absolutely all of those things. If he makes a good start, I think Verstappen's going to be hard to beat in this, but all is about to be revealed. What can Esteban Ocon do to put himself back onto the podium after his dramas in race 1? And as Menezes got a problem, there was a wave there, and I think all is well. His hands are back on the steering wheel, but I thought for a moment Menezes had a drama when he got to the grid. I think everything is okay. There's no yellow flag that I can see as I look down onto the grid. So the 14th round of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship about to get underway. There is the green flag at the back to show that everybody's where they should be. 5 red lights will go on. 5 lights go out now. Away they go with a good start being made by Ocon this time to level with Verstappen on the way down towards La Source. Ocon keeps on coming on the inside. Verstappen has to give him racing room. He goes far too deep into the corner, does Verstappen. Runs wide over the curb. Menezes has got away by about 3 lengths. It's going to be Ocon second as they plunge downhill for the first time now. Down towards Eau Rouge, and Gustavo Menezes has made a very good start, and he's been helped straight away by that battle between Ocon and Verstappen for second. Heading down towards La Source as way wide goes Rosenqvist as they come up Radion for the first time. Now they're heading towards L'École, but it was at L'École where it all kicked off on lap 1 of race 1, and it may well do again. Ocon, Verstappen, they trade places. Verstappen goes second as they come into Lecombe. Menezes breaks a fraction too late, and there is drama there. Look, there's a car off on the inside. Cars scatter everywhere. We'll piece that together in a moment, because as some have run wide, there was one that went to the barriers on the inside of the approach to Lecombe. But up front, coming down towards Bruxelles, Menezes drops to third. He got it wrong slightly coming into Lecombe. That compromised him on the way out. And so now Verstappen and Ocon have gone first and second. And Gustavo Menezes' decent start, I'm afraid, has unravelled for him by that slight error under braking. John Bryant Meisner is fourth as the cars dive downhill for the first time. Towards the pit path they come. So it is at the moment Verstappen who leads the way. Can he break clear of the opposition? Let's see. They work their way through the pit path. Menezes is third. In fourth place is Bryant Meisner. Fifth is Serralles. Try and piece together who it was that went a missing on that first lap, and a long way back for Ocon. 25th place through the first sector, struggling to make any progress whatsoever early doors. The cars come then now out of Lecombe, and not yet through the second sector rather, Jules Simkowiak. So Simkowiak seemingly is one that has gone AWOL on that opening lap of the race. He may not be the only one either, but as the leaders work their way up towards the bus stop, John Bryant Meisner comes under attack. Felix Serralles wheel to wheel with him. John Bryant Meisner hugs the inside line. Can he brake late enough to keep hold of the place? Serralles tries the outside for part one, the inside for part two of the bus stop, and he's gone through. The Puerto Rican goes ahead of the Swede as they come over the timing line, but at the end of lap one, it is Verstappen 4/10 up from Ocon. In third is Menezes, fourth Serralles, but Bryant Meisner locks up and he tries to get back on terms. Also locking up was Lucas Aron, a big drama there going up towards that source, a punctured tyre. It's Guimarães who's had the spin, but you saw the left rear is off the rim, so something, possibly a legacy of the dramas at Lecombe on the first lap, has sliced the tyre, and Guimarães now faces a very long drive back to the pit lane to get that sorted out. That's going to ruin the race for him completely. Tatiana Calderon is under attack from Felix Rosenqvist. Calderon, 8th at the end of lap 1, which is an absolutely great look at this battle, though, now. Verstappen versus Ocon, they weave around as one defends and one attacks. And there's a challenge being made as well against Toril. Lucas Aur trying to get the place back. Toril had got ahead of him. And just as expected, there are some tremendous battles raging on. Now, Verstappen is having to go defensive here to keep Ocon at bay. Will that bring Gustavo Menezes back into the picture? Serralles is running in fourth. John Bryant Meisner is fifth. Now sixth is Toril, having his best showing of the season thus far. Lucas Aur is seventh. Calderon is eighth. Rosenqvist is ninth. And Guimarães was 10th. But Jake Dennis will have inherited that place, and he started 21st. Fantastic. One lap, 21st to 11th. Jake Dennis for the Racing Steps Foundation, underlining why he is a very talented British driver. And you can see that there have been more dramas at La Source. Drivers trudge back. Let's see who we have lost this time around. Fuoka, I think he's one that's gone missing. As you see, a replay at the start. And Simkowiak being accounted for. He is headed to the pit lane. So a lock-up from Verstappen, and he ran wide. Ocon ducked up the inside and took second place away. But again, you see, Verstappen's racecraft puts him into the lead. That was the drama going up towards Lecombe. Tag, the car turns around, and then in the ensuing melee, people scatter. That was Guimarães with his tyre down. So he was 10th across the line, but as the tyre gives way and he brakes for the corner, he rotates. And then who else did we lose? Well, that's another angle of Guimarães' dramas. And we've had a spin look coming out of the bus stop. And it is Spike Goddard who has spun, and he's trying to get himself going again. So we're on to lap number 3. It is Verstappen from Ocon, 7/10 is the margin between them. Menezes runs third, then it's Serralles, Bryant Meisner, Lucas Aur back ahead of Toril, Rosenqvist is 8th, Calderon 9th, and Jake Dennis 10th for now. But it could all yet change once again as Roy Nissany dives downhill and he's under attack as well. So those that we've lost, Fuoka, Beretta and Simkowiak seemingly side by side for third now. Menezes versus Serralles. Serralles goes through. Felix Serralles working his way up the order all the time. Rosenqvist goes a little bit wide coming into Lecombe, but he should still just be able to fend off there. Alex Toril, who's trying to fight back as the cars now wriggle their way out of Lecombe once again. Felix Serralles, pre-weekend, was the lap record holder around here, so he has good Spa pace. now that he's up into the top 3, his best showing of the season thus far. Let's see what else he can do. Jake Dennis now trying to gain places as well, lower down the order. But for third, Sorales pounds on. There is Gustavo Menezes, the man that started on pole position. He's fading just a little bit, but even so, fourth would be his best finish of the season, so there's no shame in that. Behind him is now Lucas Auer, who's got himself up past John Brian Meisner. And there, Jake Dennis works his way towards the pith path. What about those coming up from the back of the grid? Tom Blomqvist is one that should be in a hurry, and Blomqvist is 15th. He's out of the point, but he's chipping away, getting up the order. Fuoco is out, so he was another of those from the back of the grid. But Jake Dennis's progress he's got to write home about, because it's been really good indeed. The fastest lap of the race, Felix Sorales, the lap record holder before we got to this weekend here. So underlining the fact that he goes well around Spa. Can we get him onto the podium for the first time this season? There is a long way to go yet. He's here, coming up towards the bus stop. Toril versus now Calderon. This is for 8th and 9th places. Tatiana Calderon going strongly. Lower down the order, Hector Hurst is fending with Nicholas Latifi, and that is a battle for 11th to 12th places. Hector Hurst having one of his best showings of the season so far. He has had a 10th, but he's not far away from that now as he heads down towards La Source. The lead gap is a second. Verstappen is just starting now to edge away from Esteban Ocon. Fastest lap of the race done last time by Lucas Auer as he tries to get himself back into the mix. His next target is Menezes, who was 11 tenths up the road. That gap should be coming down. That's the view down and then through Eau Rouge. As the next battle rages on side by side, heading now up towards Les Combes. John Brian Meisner versus Felix Rosenqvist, who goes right round the outside of his fellow countryman. So Rosenqvist now gains 6th place. There is Hector Hurst, number 22, who in turn he's trying to work his way up through the order. Battling with Nicholas Latifi, but Latifi has just mugged him heading into the braking zone there. So Rosenqvist for Lucas Motorsport is the next man in a big hurry. The accident in turn 5 between Michele Beretta and Jules Shimkowiak is under investigation. That was what kicked off on the first lap of the race. But whether there's anything to come from that or whether it's just going to be put down as a racing incident, we'll have to wait and see. There is Felipe Guimaraes. His was a pretty good save at La Source when the tyre went down, but it's sad to say he's out of the race. There is Verstappen, who still leads, but Ocon was quicker in the first sector of this lap. This is lap 4 out of 16, but he's not close enough, is he? Verstappen really has stamped his mark on this circuit. And just as we saw in race 1, that Lucas Auer, when he was chasing him, was better in sector 1, but Verstappen would pull away in sector 2. The same is happening here, Verstappen versus Ocon. Verstappen's setup seems to work better in that longer, more flowing middle sector of the lap. Felix Sorales in third, trying to hunt down the 2 ahead, but he's taking Gustavo Menezes with him, isn't he? There they are, as here is Toril versus Calderon for 8th place, heading now into the bus stop. Tatiana Calderon can't find a way through on the outside, slots back in as they work their way over the timing line, but it is Verstappen leading the way by 0.9 of a second. Surprisingly, at the moment, this race, despite the jumbled grid, hasn't got quite the same drama as the first race did. But there is still a number of laps left, which anything could yet change. As Tom Blomqvist getting on lower down the order, he is now fallen to 13th place. In fact, Hector Hurst got ahead of him on that previous lap. That's Hurst, Blomqvist, and then behind Jordan King, who's fallen to 14th place. Heading downhill through Eau Rouge now, climbing up Radion. On to Les Combes, into which comes Verstappen. But the gap 3rd to 4th is almost nothing at all, isn't it? Sorales versus Menezes. This pair overlap. Calderon having the race of their life alongside Alexander Toril, and they're being caught by Jake Dennis, who's in the points, having started 21st on the grid. A mighty effort. Calderon is ahead as you look at the next fight to go through Les Combes, in the midst of which is Tom Blomqvist. Ahead is Hurst, behind is King. So it's Westek, Carlin, 12th, 13th and 14th as they head down to Bruxelles. King has a look to the inside. Blomqvist is his teammate, different livery, because one is traditional Carlin colours, the yellow is the Jagonia I Am colour scheme, the Tasty Chicken livery. It's carried by Sean Galile, Tom Blomqvist and Antonio Giovinazzi. Galile is 19th and Giovinazzi 16th at the moment. Blomqvist through Coon, trying to close back onto the tail of Hector Hurst now. Nicholas Latifi goes through shot 11th, and there is Menezes. Is he near enough to think about attacking Sorales? No, but the Puerto Rican gets a little bit curb happy there, doesn't he, coming through Lecole. Now, through the curve of Paul Frere, they'll come in a moment. Menezes has done the best of anybody in Sector 1 on this lap. But in Sector 2, he falls away from Sorales, so just as we've had for the lead, it's rather elasticated. At certain parts of the circuit, possibly Sector 1, because you get a toe heading up the hill, things look a bit different. Also joining this party, look, is Lucas Au. There he is in 5th place, and he brakes very late coming into the bus stop, almost understeers himself off the road, and Sorales gets it wrong again into the bus stop, so Menezes now has a real chance as they come over the line. He's going to be on the outside line, though, heading down towards La Source. On the inside is Sorales, on the outside is Menezes. Now, can he go wide in and tight out? Look at Au locking up as he tries to brake as late as he dares. There is no change in the order, but 3rd, 4th and 5th have all now concertinaed up. The Beretta-Shinkoviak accident is going to the stewards, comes the latest news. As now, look at Menezes, really good through Eau Rouge. Remember, he was the pole man for this race. He's fighting back against Felix Sorales. He pulls out of the draft. Has he come too early to do that? Let's see. They're going to overlap as they head up towards Lecon. Now on the outside line is Gustavo Menezes. He should be able to come through and take the place. They almost touch wheels, but he's done it. Menezes goes back ahead of Sorales. Brave stuff on the way up to Lecon. Lucas Au now tries to buy into this as well as the cars turn their way out of Lecon. Over the curb wide goes Au. He's got Rosenqvist bearing down on him. The best of anybody in Sector 1 with a toe on this lap has been Roy Nissany, who is currently down in 15th place behind Jordan King. So, Menezes up to 3rd, pulling away, look from Sorales straight away, and there is a challenge being made, diving into Bruxelles, Nissany ahead of King. King gets forced out wide, and Giovinazzi is now going to get past him as well. King loses 2 places. For the 6th time, the cars head down towards Caen. This battle now is for 14th place. This is a bit like what we had in race 1. Up and down the order, there are battles raging. Blomqvist now up to 12th, having started 22nd on the grid, so he has made decent progress, but he's not yet in the points. I suspect he will be come the end of the race, though. Temperature has dropped a little bit as well at Spa just in the last moment or so as a cloud has appeared. I don't think it's going to affect the track surface, but it will give the engines a bit more pace for a moment as the ambient temperature drops. Now, concertinaing up here, look, for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. Rosenqvist is closing on Au, who is closing on Sorales, who has dropped back a bit from Gustavo Menezes. And Rosenqvist brakes as late as he possibly can, coming into the bus stop. In turn, Lucas Au inching up onto the back of Sorales. So, the leaders come through, and that gap I was about to suggest is a little bit less. It is! Ocon has done the fastest lap of the race. He's brought it down by 84 thousandths of a second, so he's a fraction nearer to Verstappen. Mitch Gilbert, in the meantime, has just got himself past Jordan King. And how about this as they dive to La Source? Toriel versus Dennis. Alex Toriel, who's dropped down the top 10, hangs on to the place, but Jake Dennis will make the move going to Eau Rouge. The director has so many battles to keep tabs on. That's Gilbert getting past Jordan King, who may have a problem. King tumbling down the order. Dennis has done it. He is now up into 9th place. The Brit goes ahead of the Spaniard. Alex Toriel trying to fight back. Look, gets in the toe as they head uphill. To the inside, he pulls, can't do it. Toriel being defended by Dennis. Have a look further up the road here, side by side, Brian Meisner versus Calderon. Tatiana Calderon for 7th place, can't quite do it. Tatiana, you have to say, has had a few scrapes this year. That is one battle that might yet end in tears, but if she can get a point-scoring finish, it would be a great boost for her. The car run under a Joe Zeller Racing entrance licence. Joe Zeller himself engineers the car, but it's a Muka Motorsport chassis. Through Bruxelles comes the next train of cars. Plunging downhill. We're on lap 7 out of 16. In the first sector of this lap, again, Ocon was quicker than Verstappen as he tries to hunt down the race leader. Menezes running in that 3rd place, trying to go after them, but his last lap wasn't quick enough. He was a second slower than Ocon. That said, he did have to do some overtaking on that lap. Hector Hurst, number 22, you're looking at for Team Westech, running in 13th. There are the leaders. Middle sector completed, and again, Ocon loses a little bit of time. It has to be in the first sector where he gets the toe and makes a move if possible. But starting from 0.8 of a second back, it's difficult. A replay here and more dramas coming into the bus stop at the end of the previous lap. Mitch Gilbert it was, getting himself up past Jordan King, who's got damage, hasn't he? Look on the front right corner and it's the nose section that's just dropped down slightly. So that is why Jordan King's pace has been dropping away. There's been a little bit of damage as the leaders go through, and the gap is down to 0.6 of a second. So he's come down by 0.2 over that last lap. Ocon is not out of the game yet, and we're now on the half-distance lap. Lap 8 out of the 16. Menezes, Sorales, Auer, Rosenqvist complete the top 6. Bright Meisner, Calderon, Dennis, Toril complete the top 10. And look how Jake Dennis now has caught right up onto the tail of Tatiana Calderon. The next trio diving down to La Source. This is Hector Hurst just ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, and Jordan King up the inside, levels with Giovinazzi. The Carlin teammates then are going to be wheel to wheel as they head downhill. Jordan King, despite the damage, tries to shove his nose up the inside, but Giovinazzi fends him off as they work their way through Eau Rouge once again. Behind them is Mitch Gilbert, who wants to be part of this. Tatiana Calderon has got ahead of John Bryant Meisner for 7th place. Jake Dennis is with them as well. Calderon fends off the Swede coming into Les Combes. John Bryant Meisner tries to fight back, and Jake Dennis just working out where he can make his move. There's wheel banging as King gets up the inside of Hurst. Giovinazzi goes round the outside of them. Do they all survive? More or less. Giovinazzi gets over the curb, hangs on to his place. Mitch Gilbert tries to get up the inside as well, and he's got past Hector Hurst as well. Sean Galisle is the next of the yellow perils to try to make a move down to Bruxelles. There's a gap on the inside. Can he brake late enough? Yes, he can. Wheel to wheel into the corner, and Hurst is going to get hung out to dry over the curb. Can he stand his ground on the inside for Speaker's Corner? The answer is no. Sean Galisle goes ahead of him, and out of all of that shuffling, it's put him up into now 16th place, and that battle ain't over yet either. Mitch Gilbert, the Australian then, from the back of the grid, starting to come good. Meanwhile, back near the front, 5th and 6th here, the two orange cars of Muka Motorsport, Lucas Auer and Felix Rosenqvist running together, and they are still trying to get up with Felix Sorales, but in the middle sector of the lap, fractionally slower. The lead gap starting this lap between here, Max Verstappen, who is now a double winner, and 5 times a winner, Esteban Ocon, was 0.6 of a second. The gap was down a bit in sector 1, and as is the tradition, up again in sector 2. We'll see what it is in a moment when they come across the timing line as towards Blanchimont heads the next trio. The leaders go through. It has gone up, in fact, 0.7, and Jordan King being given a driving standards flag for a dangerous manoeuvre. Down to the bus stop comes Hector Hurst, trying to fight back as he brakes for the corner, and almost being forced over the curb, Sandro Zeller, who in turn, therefore, is going to be easy picking here, isn't he? As over the timing line with him comes Dennis van der Laar. Somebody else trying to make progress from near the back of the grid, having missed all the qualifying yesterday. Zeller's only distinction in race 1 was to be warned about track limits. At least here he's got himself in a proper fight. He's gained a place as well, up to 19th, as now Sorales versus Auer is about to change. Is it for 4th place? Lucas Auer round the outside, over the curb. Contact, Sorales airborne, Sorales into the wall in a very heavy way. Lucas Auer, I think he's out of the race as well with that damage, but Lucas Auer and Felix Sorales come to grief in the middle of Les Combes. And remember, a couple of years ago from the British F3 Championship, Felix Sorales was the recipient of a pretty badly jarred back after a clash with Jack Harvey. That would have done it no good either. And the safety car is going to be deployed as it was in race 1 for an accident at the same part of the circuit. Sorales, with a very big impact, is in the wall. He was lucky that car didn't go over. Lucas Auer is okay and steps out of the car. But in the meantime, Felix Sorales, good to see, is getting out of the car, but he's going to ache in the morning, that is for sure. And Team Westech is looking at a pretty busy night, I think, to repair that. That's the same part of the circuit where Santino Ferrucci was entangled with Antonio Giovinazzi in race 1, and Ferrucci's car not in this race, such was the damage. So Auer onto the curb, then he locks up, scrabbling into the corner. Sorales takes his line, Auer goes over the curb, but he doesn't really lift, does he? He gets back onto the circuit, they interlock wheels. There was only one way that Sorales was going, and for what it's worth, I would think Lucas Auer has a case to answer there. Sorales, lucky that didn't go over, and you see the tar barrier doing its job. It cushions that blow, but even so, that is a big hit. And the wind knocks out of everybody's sails, I think, on the pit wall from that. So, safety car deployed, and the incident between Auer and Sorales is under investigation, which will not come as a huge shock, I don't suppose. So the yellow flags fly. The race is then on to lap 10 out of 16, and Max Verstappen is the man who leads the way. The Belgian-born, Belgian-domiciled Dutchman will once again focus on the rear of the Alfa Romeo 4C safety car, which collects everybody coming out of La Source. And as it heads down towards Eau Rouge, the marshals up at Les Cons still toiling away. Lucas Auer's car didn't look that badly damaged, but that is going no further. And this is another replay of it. See how so determined was he to gain the place, completely unaware of where Sorales may have been. Sticks his nose up the inside, launches it into the barriers. And Lucas Auer's race over as well with damage, the bite a bit in a sense. So the safety car leads the field. Lap 10 we are on, and the order is Max Verstappen, Esteban Ocon, Gustavo Menezes, Felix Rosenqvist 4th now, Tatiana Calderon in 5th, John Bright Meisner 6th, Jake Dennis 7th having started 21st, 8th Alex Torriel, 9th Tom Blomqvist having started 22nd, and 10th Nicholas Latifi, who didn't start that badly, he was 13th. Roy Nissany is 11th and therefore out of the points. Then it's King, Giovinazzi, Gilbert, Galile, Hurst, Van der Laar, Zeller and Spike Goddard. 19 out of 25 starters are still going. It's not quite going to be the last car running, but it's certainly been a race of damage and a race of attrition. That is a very crippled car. Felix Sorales, having talked him up early in the race and saying that he always goes well and has good speed around Spa. The incident with Lucas Auer taking him out of that race, and whether Auer faces a grid drop penalty potentially for race 3, we'll see. Let's catch up on some of the highlights while we're behind the safety car of race 2 here at Spa. A race that began with Gustavo Menezes on pole position, but come the end of the first lap, it was the battle between Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon for the race lead. And Michele Beretta and Jules Szymkowiak, early casualties up at Les Cons. We lost also Antonio Fuoco from the race. Felipe Guimaraes had a puncture, and he too an early retirement. Mitch Gilbert, another man to make some progress early on. He's got himself up to 14th, having started 25th on the grid. But that's the accident that has brought out the safety car. And so, with the cars on lap 10 out of 16. Now, Sorales' car is off the road. It's not just getting that out of the way, it's also getting the barrier repaired and any shards of bodywork off the track as well that the officials will be concentrating on. But the race director, Sven Stopper, will, in due course, I'm sure, give the signal. We await to see whether the safety car will be in this time, but I think there's going to be at least one more lap. So, Max Verstappen's race interrupted, but the way that he controlled the safety car restart in race 1 makes you believe there'll be no dramas this time around either. There is Latifi, there is Roy Nissany, so that's 10th and 11th, Latifi into the points. And Spike Goddard there in the background in the T-Sport car with the NBE, the Neil Brown Engineering engine. The safety car's just gone across the line, and it will continue for at least one more lap. So we are on lap 11 of 16. We have 11 minutes and change on the clock. Probably therefore go to the 35-minute time slot rather than the number of laps, but there Jos Verstappen looks on, and he'd probably quite like this race to go to the end under the safety car. It's unlikely because it won't be long, I think, before the incident zone is clear, and the safety car picking up its pace a little bit now so that the drivers can get one lap at a reasonable speed to get a bit more warmth back into the standard Hankook tyre on which everybody has to run in this championship. But there are still some battles to be resolved. And now that the safety car has bunched them all up, it's all going to kick off again, no doubt, when we go racing once again. And the old adage about safety cars breed safety cars could well become true. There are still one or two people in unusual places in this order. If Tatiana Calderon can hang on to 5th place, it will be an amazing result. I don't mean that rudely, but she's got some quick people now, not only behind, but much closer behind, brought nearer by this safety car situation. So the barriers at Les Cons are good, the marshals are all back on post, all the shards of bodywork have been swept away, and so we should be ready to go racing once again here at Spa. Safety car is in this lap, and so then hang on to your hats once more as we will start lap number 12 and have 9 minutes, maybe 8.5 minutes of race time still to run as the cars head downhill then. So Verstappen, who has had a very impressive weekend thus far, being able to make that decent start, battle his way through to the front, even though he messed up a little bit at La Source on that first lap and ran wide and fell to 3rd. The way that he attacks going up the hill towards Les Cons, just as we saw in race 1, standing him in good stead. He leads the way, but can Esteban Ocon do anything about him on the restart. The Frenchman, who has had 5 race wins this year, and he's a completely different sort of driver from Verstappen. He's much smoother, calmer, almost looks slow. You stand trackside and watch Verstappen, he arrives with urgency, with a little bit of arm twirling, very aggressive driver. There's not that much to choose between them, but more often than not, it's the slightly smoother Ocon style of driving that is fractionally the faster. But around here, Verstappen has been the master thus far. Ocon right up behind him. And what about the poleman, Gustavo Menezes, who's been thrown this lifeline now by the safety car coming out. He's back in the game in 3rd spot. Rosenqvist 4th will want a podium. Tatiana Calderon would be delighted with 5th, but you never know what could happen to make it better for her ahead. John Meisner is 6th. Jake Dennis, 21st he started. 7th he runs. He might yet get on the podium. 8th is Toril. 9th is Blomqvist. 10th is Latifi. We are about to complete lap number 11. We will go green with about 8.5 minutes on the clock because the green flag is shown on the start line now. The safety car has left this lot way behind. And so, hang on to your hats. We're about to go racing once more in round 14 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Verstappen, as in race 1, crawls to the bus stop, now picks up the pace, tries to get the drop on Esteban Ocon. And when he comes out of the bus stop and goes over the timing line, the race will be back on. 1 or 2 look getting a bit toey lower down the order to think about gaining places as they head up towards the timing line. Now the green flag is waved. Now they can go racing and think about overtaking with bang on 8 minutes to go when they cross the timing line. There, look, Calderon trying to defend from John Meisner coming up towards La Source. Tatiana Calderon's going to go wide into the corner. Meisner given an enormous chance to get up alongside. Can he take it? Van der Laar goes wide, heading into La Source. And that now puts right up alongside him Sandro Zeller. But Verstappen has bolted, hasn't he, from the front? Verstappen leads. Ocon is still 2nd. And Calderon has hung on to the place. John Meisner is behind at the moment, but now he's in the slipstream. The toe should work now, heading up towards Lecombe. He goes to the outside, and is Jake Dennis close enough? He's Ocon close enough to Verstappen. Tries the outside, tries the inside. Verstappen, as he did in race 1, squeezes. He brakes late. Ocon brakes as late as he dares as well. There's no change in the order, but that was Ocon's best chance in the draft from the restart heading uphill. Menezes is still with him in 3rd place as well. And what's happened behind? Because 4th is Rosenqvist, 5th is Calderon, 6th is Jake Dennis, who's got ahead of John Meisner. So another place gain for Jake Dennis. He's into the top 6 and he's not finished yet. 5th should be on the cards. What a race. Formula 3 around here this weekend has been fantastic. These cars can overtake, they can deliver great racing, and it's natural, pure racing as well. There's no reverse grid, there's no ballast. Through Pouhon now comes the midfield pack, but up front, can Esteban Ocon stay on the back of Verstappen? Can he stay with him and force this race lead battle to develop? Remember, it was late in race 1 that Verstappen developed oversteer and started to struggle, and so now as the cars come through the pit path, wide there goes Mitch Gilbert in the background. Jordan King turns through ahead of him. Jos Verstappen looks on. Hector Hurst tries to get up the inside there of Mitch Gilbert. 14th place they're squabbling for now. 6 minutes and change on the clock as Verstappen still leads the way, and he's pulled out half a second in the middle sector of the lap alone. John Meisner et al. Work their way up towards the bus stop. Jake Dennis is going to go around the outside at Blanchimont. He's over the curb, he's over the white line, he's ahead, he's gained the place. Jake Dennis goes through. John Meisner is under attack from Toril. He brakes late to go around the outside of the Brit. He's all up the escape road. He will get back onto the circuit ahead of Jake Dennis, and he should give back the place as they come over the line. Let's see whether he does. He certainly gains an advantage. Hamilton Raikkonen revisited from the Grand Prix of 2008 as there to the inside line. Look, diving up towards La Source. Toril has a look on the inside. Can he go through? No, he can't. Jake Dennis runs wide under attack from Tom Blomqvist. Downhill, Dennis versus Blomqvist. This now is for 7th and 8th places. So Jake Dennis was gaining places, now he's got to defend them, and all that really was by John Meisner's dramas going into the bus stop. I would be very surprised if Meisner were allowed to keep that place. Now, Dennis under attack as they head uphill. Right on his tail is Tom Blomqvist, and now they're going to be 3, maybe 4 wide, heading up towards Lecombe. There you can see Jake Dennis on the inside. He will go past Meisner this time, and there's contact. Meisner spins. Toril, I think, possibly tagged him. Blomqvist goes off in avoidance. He gets back onto the circuit, but he would have lost a place to Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi comes up on the inside to try to get alongside Toril as well. Down towards Bruxelles they come, and as Toril got damaged, he's straight off. Yes, I think he did tag, didn't he, as they went into Lecombe, so he suffered as a consequence of all of that. and still we're not done. 4.5 minutes to go. Max Verstappen leads the way. We'll be asking questions later. Giovinazzi is the man that's really lucked in on this lap. He started in 12. He's going to be much, much better than that by the time he gets over the timing line. 4 minutes are on the clock. Towards us comes Jake Dennis. Behind him now is Latifi, then Giovinazzi, then the recovering Blomqvist. Max Verstappen, Esteban Ocon, Gustavo Menezes, the top three. Mitch Gilbert tries to go around the outside of Roy Nissany. Behind the pair of them, it is Latifi who's fallen back. Sorry, it's Dennis van der Laar, isn't it, who is running with them now. So out of Lecole, heading towards the curb, Paul Frere once more. Right the way through the field. Battles change, corner by corner, lap by lap. And the Carlin twins here, the Jagonia I Am, the Tasty Chicken cars, are having a sizzling battle, nose to tail. Just at the head of this fight is Giovinazzi, but Blomqvist wants to gain the place back as they come to the bus stop, and he brakes desperately late. Has he done it? Yes! Great move round the outside. Tom Blomqvist goes ahead, and Sean Galile in the third car is busy. He's just got ahead of Dennis van der Laar there, look, coming into the bus stop. So we have got 3 minutes and 22 seconds on the clock. Verstappen, Ocon, Menezes the top three. Rosenqvist fourth. Calderon is still fifth, and it's Dennis. Then Latifi, Blomqvist, Giovinazzi, and Jordan King in the points in 10th place. For now, it could all change again at the next corner as they plunge downhill once again. Verstappen to Ocon is 7/10 of a second. And as they work their way now through Eau Rouge for the 14th time, how many more laps are we going to get in at the end of this? Ocon, look, gets the toe, closes back onto the tail of Verstappen, heading uphill. Menezes to Rosenqvist. That gap has come down a little bit as well. It was 4/10 at the start of the lap. Rosenqvist gained a massive 3/1000 in sector one. So he's closing, slowly but surely. And there is Spike Goddard turning his way into Lecombe, the Australian driver, trying to gain further ground as the race draws towards its conclusion. Now he is currently in 15th place. You get a replay of Toril running into John Bryant Meisner, turning him around. Bryant Meisner did recover from that, so did Toril, but Toril only got as far as the pit lane, and Bryant Meisner's good run spoiled, so he's way, way down now in 18th place, or last as it's known in this rather destructive 14th round of the championship. Verstappen, 7/10 of a second ahead at the start of this lap, and they're going to get one more lap out of it. There is now less than a lap time left in the race. So can Verstappen take a second victory of the day? Seemingly, yes. Esteban Ocon has tried everything, but Verstappen just excels around here. Out of Lecole comes the midfield fight. There, Alex Toril, who started 6th on the grid. John Bryant Meisner, with whom he tangled, was 4th. So what should have been a good result for both ends in big disappointment. But for Verstappen, it's going to be a very good day, unless Esteban Ocon has a rabbit to pull out of the hat on the last lap, and I don't think he has. Out of the bus stop they come. The last lap starts now as they come over the timing line. Latifi, in the meantime, busy trying to fend off the Blomqvist and Giovinazzi battle. So this now 7th, 8th and 9th as they come over the timing line. Behind them is Jordan King to round out the point scorers in 10th spot. Into La Source for the last time then they go. Nicholas Latifi, whose best of the year has been a 2nd place, a long way away from that, but he's in the points, which is good in a yo-yo season. So towards Eau Rouge for the last time goes the midfield group. Up Radion towards Lecombe comes Verstappen. Can Ocon get into the draft? Can he do anything about attacking at Lecombe? I don't think he's going to get close enough. The slipstream works, he gets sucked along behind Verstappen's car, but just as he gets close enough to think about a move, he's got to brake and turn into Lecombe. There isn't enough time left, but then Verstappen slides a little bit midway through Lecombe. That toe helps Ocon gain half a second. Latifi, meantime, having to fend off Blomqvist for all he's worth now. This is for 7th, 8th and 9th. Giovinazzi right on the back of his teammate. Blomqvist defends. That therefore means that Latifi has an easy ride down to Brussels because he doesn't have to worry about Blomqvist. Blomqvist is trying to defend from Giovinazzi. There aren't many Formula 3 races where you hope they hide the checkered flag, but this is one of them. Out of Speaker's Corner, down towards Pouhon, comes 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Up front, Verstappen to Ocon was 0.7 of a second starting this last lap, and Esteban Ocon looks as though he's going to have to settle for second. And not only are these two drivers the top two outright, they are also the top two in the rookie contest as well. Gustavo Menezes 3rd, also an F3 rookie for this year. Then it's Rosenqvist 4th. Calderon is still there in 5th place, driving the race of their life. Jake Dennis in 6th, although that gap coming down in that first sector of the lap, so it could yet change before the end. It's one to watch as they get to the timing line. So behind them is this, 7th, 8th, 9th, Latifi, Blomqvist, Giovinazzi, turning their way towards Blanchimont. Jake Dennis goes through shots, still behind Calderon. The checkered flag is going to be made ready. There's another driving standards flag being offered up, and it was to John Brian Meisner for exceeding track limits. It matters not, given that he's last. Max Verstappen wins for the second time today. Round 14 of the championship goes the way of Max Verstappen, his 3rd victory of the season. A very happy dad is there to see him win by 0.8 of a second from Ocon. Menezes on the podium for the first time. Rosenqvist 4th, and Tatiana Calderon takes 5th place, her best ever, ahead of Jake Dennis for 6th. Latifi, Blomqvist, Giovinazzi and Jordan King rounds out the top 10 in what has been yet another very dramatic race around Spa-Francorchamps. And we thought race 1 was pretty good. Race 2 is another perler, and there's race 3 to go tomorrow morning, and that has another fairly jumbled grid as well. The man that will start that one on pole is Esteban Ocon, but around him there are again drivers in unfamiliar places. Van Amersfoort Racing having its day of days. First year the team has been in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, and 2 victories thanks to Max Verstappen, and with a second car, that of Gustavo Menezes, in 3rd. A 1-3 finish for the team is a pretty decent result, I think you could say. So the drivers will shortly make their way to the podium, and confirmation has gone through the screen of the way they came across the timing line, but the incident towards the end between Toril and John Bright Meisner is under investigation, and I think it may well be that Lucas Auer, Felix Morales' story is confirmed long after the race is finished as well. But the good news was that we saw Felix Morales get out of the car, but it was a big impact. Confirmation of the top 10 in round 14. Max Verstappen wins from Esteban Ocon and then Gustavo Menezes. Felix Rosenqvist 4th. Tatiana Calderon takes 5th ahead of Jake Dennis, with Latifi, Blomqvist, Giovinazzi and then Jordan King rounding out the point scorers in the top 10. 11th, frustratingly, the best of the rest, is the Israeli driver Roy Nissany. Mitch Gilbert comes from 25th on the grid to 12th, ahead of Sean Galal and Dennis van der Laar. Spike Goddard 15th, ahead of Sandro Zella. Hector Hurst was in the leading dozen early on, but he got mugged and elbowed back to 17th with John Bright Meisner, and Alex Toril classified 18th and 19th, although Toril, in fairness, we'd seen retire to the pits, but he did enough on distance to be classified, for what it is worth, in 19th place. So for Max Verstappen, it is a victory, not only outright, but also he is the winning rookie. Esteban Ocon and Gustavo Menezes, 2nd and 3rd outright, 2nd and 3rd rookies as well. So it will be a fairly easy podium ceremony for everybody. There is the podium being made ready, and the drivers will be whisked there as rapidly as possible. This was the restart as Esteban Ocon made that move to the inside, but Verstappen doesn't have sharp elbows. He moved across and made absolutely sure that the highly rated Frenchman was not coming by. And after that, there was really no other opportunity for Ocon. The hard work was done to get close, but never was he able to challenge. The Henkel Trocken is made ready for the top 3, and also the representative of the winning team, which is Van Amersfoort Racing, as we have a look back at some of the highlights of round 14 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Well, it was another drama-filled race. This is how the championship looks. Esteban Ocon extending the advantage over Tom Blomqvist yet further. But now Lucas Auer in 3rd, 11 points back. Max Verstappen gains 4th place from Antonio Fuoco. And Verstappen has a huge number of points to make up on Ocon. But don't forget, that was round 14 out of 33. Anything can yet happen. It has been a fascinating start to this year's FIA F3 European Championship. The next stop, a completely different sort of circuit, which is the Norris Ring. And so from Spa to the German street circuit, it'll be a whole different ball game for the teams and for the drivers, and no doubt that will throw up a few surprises in a week's time. The championship also goes to the Red Bull Ring, it goes to Moscow, it has another of its away days from the DTM package at Imola, and finishes in October at Hockenheim, back with the DTM. Round 14 of the championship looked like this. A good start from Gustavo Menezes. Esteban Ocon knew he had to find a way past Max Verstappen. He did it at the first corner. Verstappen braked late, he ran wide, he fell to third, but it didn't faze him. Before long, he was starting to attack once more. Heading up towards Lecon for the first time, Menezes put a wheel onto the curb. That unsettled him under braking. Szymkowiak and Beretta got together. Beretta tagged the back of Szymkowiak's car and turned him off the road. They are under investigation. John Bryant Meisner raced hard early on, but he lost out to Felix Morales, who made his move around the outside, heading into the bus stop. Bryant Meisner would continue in the top 10 until late race. Antonio Fuoco was another early casualty, so too Felipe Guimarães, who had a punctured tyre going to La Source and a big, big spin. More battles raged on, lower down the order as the cars wriggled through the bus stop. Mitch Gilbert was one of those in a hurry trying to gain places. He was busy squabbling with Jordan King, who had some front damage on the wing, and that's part of the reason he was losing places. But in fairness to King, he fought back well and got himself into the top 10. Hector Hurst forced out wide at Lecon. He lost a couple of places here. Worse was to come late in the race. But this was the incident that brought out the safety car. Lucas Auer into the side of Felix Morales, who in turn into the barriers in a very heavy way. It doesn't matter which angle you see it from, it's still hard to think that Morales was in any way to blame for that. Lucas Auer's red mist descended. On the restart, a great move by Jake Dennis around the outside of John Bryant Meisner, gained him ground in the end. Jake Dennis would take 6th, but Bryant Meisner skipped over the bus stop runoff area, hung onto the plate. Little good did it do him because he tangled with Toril and it put him into last place come the very end. This was the drama. Toril to the inside as the cars accelerated up towards Lecon. A little bit of contact. Toril was out with damage. Bryant Meisner was able to hook a gear and continue, albeit down in 18th and last place. And at the checkered flag, Max Verstappen the winner from Esteban Ocon by 0.8 of a second. Max Verstappen and the rest of the Van Amersfoort racing team very happy indeed, as here is the podium. For Max Verstappen, the national anthem, and he takes win number 3 of the season, and win number 2 of the day. And Roland Brunsterada, who is the president of the RACB Sport, steps forward to hand over the winner's trophy to Max Verstappen. For Van Amersfoort Racing, the winning team's trophy will be presented in a moment by Christoph Stucki, who is Hankook's senior motorsport manager. Van Amersfoort having a very good day indeed. There for Esteban Ocon is his second place trophy, and Ocon is not noted for smiling when not on the top step. Christoph Stucki there hands over the trophy to Gustavo Menezes for third place. A 1-3 for Van Amersfoort in a championship where you tend to think Prema Power team versus Carlin. Now Van Amersfoort is certainly positioning itself as a real factor. Admittedly, you might expect it as a Dutch team to go well at Benelux circuits, but the amount of data it has is limited for a modern F3 car, a 2012 chassis, which everybody runs in this. It's every 3 years Alara brings out a new car, so it's a 2012 with an update for this season. But Van Amersfoort becoming a serious threat to what you might call the established Formula 3 winning teams. And so, with the drivers all on the top step, the photographs, they make their way to the front of the podium for the photographers, and then that podium is going to become very wet indeed as the top 3 drivers can celebrate their results at the end of round 14 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship as Max Verstappen celebrates in time-honoured fashion. Esteban Ocon is still the man, though, who leads the championship, and with one more race to come at Spa this weekend, it's going to be fascinating to see whether he is going to be able to score at least one victory, or whether Max Verstappen can win all 3. Nobody has yet done at any of the events this season. So a triple whammy for Verstappen really would be an amazing result. Van Amersfoort still celebrating this 1-3 finish that it's had, but Max Verstappen can take the Henkel Trocken away, confident that today he has done a very good job indeed. And although, as I say, he's still doing a lot of chasing in the championship, that has done him a great deal of good indeed. Race 3 comes up tomorrow from Spa-Francorchamps. Be with us for that if you can. But for now, from David Addison from Spa, goodbye.